I get so self-conscious. There's a camera, I'm like, seriously, my face is so shiny.
Something's wrong with my camera too, dude. I look way too good looking.
Hello, I'm Ty.
I'm Jordan.
And this is the Stephen King Read-a-thon.
Whoop, whoop.
Cue the intro, I guess. We'll
Dun, 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 dun.
We are slowly but surely working our way through all of Stephen King's published fiction, and we are doing like a buddy read type thing, Jordan and I, and we do updates every week on what we've read. So like, comment, and subscribe because we're going to be posting these every week, and it's fun.
Yeah, good little conversation.
Hopefully it's fun for people watching as it is for us. This is really geared toward people who have already read the books or want to read along with us, or possibly people who don't have any intention of reading the books. They can kind of just listen to what we say. But I feel like we don't do a fantastic job.
I know, we need to do better at that, but we're getting better. We're getting better as our videos progress. We get better at
I have to keep reminding myself of that. Like I have to keep telling myself, like, we're getting better. It's okay. We're only on the second book. We're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I look at these and I'm like, how can even, like, nobody can even follow what we're saying. So welcome. To check out the earlier videos in this series, click on the card above and let's jump into it. Salem's Lot. We read chapter 3. Right? Chapter 3, right?
Yeah, chapter 3. And we just did chapter 3 because there's a lot of different viewpoints. It kind of was it was kind of an interesting layout, I thought. It just went throughout the day. Like it split it up into segments of time periods. So it starts at like 4 a.m. and then goes throughout different random citizens' viewpoints throughout the town throughout the day. So like starts at 4 and ends at 11:59 p.m. And we'll get to that. That's crazy.
At 11:59. You know about 11:59, right, Jordan?
That it's
right before midnight.
That's right. That's what I was gonna say.
That's the beginning of the witching hour. That's dangerous stuff right there.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens after midnight, they say.
That's right.
Actually, there is, before we jump into the book and the reading and stuff, I'm excited for this chapter to talk about it. I can't believe I forgot to mention last week in the earlier, I think it was chapter 1 probably. I noticed there was a connection with Carrie. Did you notice that? Did you see that?
I didn't notice that.
It just mentions a couple towns. It mentions Chamberlain, which is the town that Carrie takes place in.
Oh.
Chamberlain is like a town near-ish to Salem's Lot, to Jerusalem's Lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's mentioned in chapter 1 or maybe in the prologue. I'm not sure. And then it also mentions Lewiston, which was a town that's near Chamberlain. It was mentioned in Carrie, and it was mentioned here. So
I didn't catch that.
They're neighbors.
I did.
Yeah.
So
crazy. we see our first real solid connection that these two books take place in, like, I mean, I had heard, we've talked about this, all his books are in the same world and stuff. But then when you read them, it's like, yeah, it's Maine. Like,
yeah.
The real world. Like,
They're all in Maine.
I don't know. I'm sure the connections will get more, cool,
well,
interesting.
But Chamberlain's a made-up place, right?
Yeah.
Made-up town, so. Yeah.
And so is Jerusalem's Lot.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got clout, valor.
For sure. I just thought it was cool, and I noticed it before our discussion last week, and I just completely forgot to mention it.
Oh yeah.
We were talking last week about the prologue, and like I had read the prologue and then waited a couple days and then read the chapters, and like the prologue, honestly, in this book, I feel like it's a little weird. It was difficult to understand, but then if you go back and reread it, which I did this week, some things kind of click. Some things
Okay.
I don't know, you start to see little things.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about, like, is the tall man in the prologue, is that Ben or someone else? And I noticed in the very first paragraph, it says he's driving, I don't know how the heck you pronounce this car name, Citrion or something, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
That's the car that Ben drives. It mentions the kind of car that he drives a couple times when he's like driving with Susan and stuff.
Okay.
And the tall man, when he's traveling across the country with his kid, he's driving that kind of car. So it's like, there's a clue that it's Ben. But I feel like it's a red herring. I've officially, I think I've decided that it's not Ben.
Well, no, because there's some other hints that could. Well, I don't. Should we just jump in and then talk about the other hints, or?
Sure. Well,
Okay.
He's driving the same car. And then there was a quote. You had mentioned this, and I got the exact quote. In the prologue, it says, he had been a mildly successful novelist a million years before, in a time when the darkness had not come over his life. Maybe it is Ben. I mean,
what does that mean?
Figure it out. And I think, like, it's funny because I think we're making a big deal out of it when it's not even supposed to be a big deal. Ben, is it the vampire? Is it something else? It's like, it probably doesn't even really matter. I don't know. But it does feel like he is deliberately not calling him Ben and making it mysterious. So I don't know. And then the last little line in the prologue, it talks about how he has a crazy nightmare. It's when he decides to, like, go back to Salem's Lot. He has a nightmare, and then it says he wakes up. He closed his eyes and put his arm across them, and it all began to come back. He could almost see the glass paperweight, the kind that will make a tiny blizzard when you shake it. Then remember, we had talked about that's the thing that Ben took from the Marston house. So, like, it's got to be Ben. I think I just convinced myself that it actually is Ben again. I don't know.
Well, I have some ideas that it could be too, because I saw that you said that, and I don't know. There's some other little things that maybe it could be.
What other things? Tell me.
Well, it might give away some other stuff at the end of it. Do we want to go through it, like?
Okay. Let me just say one last thing.
Okay, yeah. Say more stuff.
And I thought of this before we read chapter 3 this week. I thought of it after we did our video last week, because we know it's a vampire story. We haven't seen anything vampiric yet.
Yeah.
But I thought, what if the murders in the Marston house, I thought, were so interesting and spooky, and, it's very intriguing and stuff. So Ben goes into the house, he goes up the stairs, and he claims to have seen the dead body still hanging there, and the dead body, like, opened its eyes and looked at him, right? And that happened 12 years after the murders and the suicide happened.
Right.
So then I started thinking, what if Mrs. Marston was a vampire, got bitten or something, became a vampire, the husband shot her in the head.
All right.
And so that destroyed her fangs, so no one would be able to tell.
Okay. All right. I follow.
And then, or maybe not exactly like that, but some sort of situation where they were dealing with a vampiric situation. And that's why the guy set up all the booby traps around the house. Like, maybe they thought they were being a target of vampires or something. I don't know, something.
Okay.
He kills his wife because she got bitten. And then he kills himself because she bit him before he was able to kill her. And he's like, I got to save the town, not let myself become this monster. So he goes upstairs, hangs himself, but he's actually still, like, undead alive. So, like, he's hanging there and can't get down. And so, like, he's still there.
But the cops went and, like, raided the place, right? So
that's
they have
true.
Taken him down?
That's true. I don't know. Maybe he killed them all. No,
they just left him there.
Well,
he's dead.
I didn't even think
he's not
about
going to get any deader. We'll just leave him out there.
Well, that's what I would do if I were a cop. Well, I was thinking about it, like, it's such a haunted place. no one goes in there. So that's what I was thinking, like, oh yeah, like maybe he's just still there and like he's a vampire and he's just there. But you're right, actually, those guys did find the body, and why would they not take it down? I could see it kind of happening. It's a stretch, but I could see it happening if they left the body there, like nobody goes in the house ever again because they're too scared or whatever, and it would kind of work. But yeah, you just threw a wrench in my theory there.
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe it is.
We'll
Maybe
see.
they threw it up there for a fun joke.
We'll
The cops
see.
are like, "This is gonna get the town kids. This will be a real doozy. This will get them. They'll come in here and see this guy, and it'll be funny."
The sheriff's like, well, let's get this thing down, and the deputy's like, hold, now hear me out. Now hear me out. You know what this town's missing? A really great Halloween attraction.
That's it. We solved the mystery. We don't need to read the rest of the book. All right. Video's over. Let's leave.
But I don't know. I was thinking because I was thinking, like, how do these murders or murder-suicide? I keep calling them murders, but I guess it's a murder and a suicide. How does that tie into the overall vampire theme? And I was thinking, like, maybe she was a vampire and he killed her to save the town or something. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it could be.
I think it's a fun idea. We'll see. Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But then we read this chapter, and like you said, I was really intrigued by the way it was written. It made me think of like a TV show, like an episode of a TV show, and it just goes throughout a day. But really, we hardly see anything from Ben in this whole chapter. It's divided. Yeah. There's 20 different parts. Some of them are only like a paragraph long. Some of them are like several pages, and it jumps from one character to another character to every part is like a different character, and it just goes throughout this whole day.
So yeah, it introduces like so many characters.
Oh my gosh, yes. I got to like part 7, and then I was like, wait, I should go back and take notes on this, because it was just there was no real. The only thing tying it together was the time sequence, that it was like this time this happened, this time this happened. They were all different characters, so it was really easy to sort of get lost. Do you want to kind of go through those and just explain what happened at a different time of day?
Yeah, so I'll go through them a little bit quickly just because there are so many, and if you have anything to insert, you just stop me.
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay. All right, so 4 a.m., we start with these boys named the Griffin Boys. They're out milking. Their kind of backstory is
milking cows.
Milking cows. Yeah, not the cats. Not
the it's Hal and Jack Griffin. They're the sons of Charles Griffin, who's like, he was mentioned earlier. He's like the biggest dairy farmer in the area.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so they go out to milk. It kind of gives like what they're thinking, and they hate school. They don't want to be in school. They just want to be farmers and do milking. So that was kind of their story.
It's from Hal's perspective. He hates school, and his brother, he says he's like a nerd. I guess he does well at school. But we don't really see it from his perspective. But yeah.
So Hal hates school. He wants to be a farmer like his dad. His dad makes a ton of money, and he doesn't see why he has to go to school. So.
And then just to pause, this is, for anybody who hasn't read it, this is like we said, it's just such a weirdly structured chapter. You don't see those kids again for the rest of the chapter. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like 2 pages.
It introduces them.
Or 2 pages. Just talking about these kids milking cows and talking about how doesn't really like school. And then it just moves on to someone else. And it's like, okay. I don't know. It's just really strange.
It was interesting. So 4:30 a.m. talks about this guy, Erwin Purrington. He's the milkman for the town. He's going about his day doing his milkman duties, dropping off milk. He seems like kind of a crabby old guy. Like, people ask him for like an extra little something, and he's like, oh great, it's gonna be this kind of day.
One of those days.
Yeah, one of those days. And he has a dog named Doc. And that's important later.
That will come in later. I thought I don't know, I just think it's this is a book from the 70s, and it's just fun to like have a milkman character. You and I we did not grow up in the milkman generation.
Right.
And like it's
I actually
interesting.
grew up on a dairy farm though. We
That's
went out to the milk barn and just got jugs of milk and stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's fun to see this sort of antiquated thing where at the end of chapter 2, it talked about Susan. She's getting ready to have Ben is going to come over for dinner the next day. So she writes on this little order form that you would leave on your doorstep for the milkman. She's like, oh, and we need some sour cream also. So like the milkman comes to deliver your daily milk, and then he sees, oh, you also want some sour cream, and he grabs some out of his truck and leaves it. And like, I don't know, it's just like there's
simple
something,
life. It's nice to just see simple life. Yeah.
There's something charming. That's the word. Yeah. Very charming.
I agree.
But Irwin, he's having a little bit of a what's the word? Like a not stressful
morning.
Yeah, he's just having like a little bit of an irritating day because apparently everybody's asking him for like extra stuff, and he's like, man, okay.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So, yeah. That's all it talks about him. Then at 5:15 a.m., it goes to Eva Miller, and she's the owner of the boarding house. And that's the same boarding house that Ben went and checked into.
Right, she's Ben's landlady.
Yeah, that's right.
The big lady, she likes to eat a big breakfast.
That's right. Yeah. It didn't talk a whole lot about her, but it just said like her husband had died a while ago in an accident at the mill, was it?
Yeah, he worked at a mill. Oh yeah, actually it talks about him a little bit later.
That's right.
And like he had a pretty gruesome death. He fell in like this big like chopping machine or something. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
It also just while she is like she's having her breakfast and then she has like a coffee and a cigarette afterward, and then Irwin, the milkman, shows up. She's like, hey, you want to give me an extra, was it milk or eggs or something? She asks for something extra. And he's like,
I thought it was eggs, yeah.
He's like, I knew it was going to be one of those days. Like, so we'll see that again. So some of these characters do sort of interact, but like mostly these parts are very isolated.
Yeah.
And then, the next one, this one was kind of hard to read as a parent.
Oh, I know. I did not like if you're gonna read the book, skip this part because I did not like this part at all. Like this is you quickly lose a lot of respect for Sandy McDougal. So.
Very, whatever, yeah.
It just she's a high school dropout. She had a baby. Her husband's kind of like he works like a 9 to 5 and then goes and hangs out with his buddies at the bar. And she was
17, I think, right? She's 17 and her kid is like 10 months old.
Yeah, super young. She was supposed to be like a model or something if she didn't have this kid. So she just sees him as like a hindrance and a nuisance, and basically she just like abuses him.
So that's hard. Let's be clear, having the kid when you're a teenager, not the best idea, but that's not why we don't like her.
Right.
She straight up punches her son, like who's 10 months old.
10 months.
And like, it was. As a parent, I'm sure you can relate. Hopefully, you can relate, or I'm gonna feel like a monster. So, sometimes you want to just smack your kids, like even when they're babies, like just shut up, just stop crying. But you never do it, you know?
Right.
Like
you just have. Yeah, I mean, I think it's human to just have feelings like, I want to do something, like with anything, you know, like somebody cuts you off and you're like, oh, dude, I'm gonna murder that guy. But you don't get out of your car and murder the guy because that's not what you do. Same with like this girl. She just does all these things that you're like, oh, you don't do that as a person. You just don't do that.
When I was first reading it, I was like, oh man, this is so relatable because she's at home, the baby won't stop crying. It's super early in the morning. It's like 5:30, 6 in the morning or something.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'll get your bottle of formula or whatever. And then she like doesn't heat it up. She's like, you can drink it cold if you want it. And I was like, that's a little, a little not nice, but I can get it. Like you're sleep deprived as a parent. And then she walks in the room and the kid has poop all over his hands, all over the wall. He's like smeared it everywhere. And when I read that, I was like, oh, poor mom. Like, that's the worst.
Have you had that happen?
Yes, but not to that extreme.
Okay.
I've got a fantastic picture of my son when he wasn't walking. He must have been 6 to 8 months old, somewhere in there. And I've got a picture of him in the bathtub. He still has his diaper on, but I put him in the bathtub because he was such a mess.
Mm-hmm.
There's poop coming out of the top of the diaper, and there's poop coming down out of both legs. It's coming. It's bad. It's so bad. It's a really funny picture. It's funny now.
Yeah.
But,
no, I've had that same sort of thing. Like, I was putting Presley down for a nap when she was probably like, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe younger than that. And I thought she was sleeping for probably like 30 minutes. And then I started to hear noises. So I come open the door to the bedroom, and there's poop smeared all over the wall. And she's used Katie, my wife's slippers, to smear it on the wall. So she didn't use her hands. Very, very responsible of her.
She kept her hands clean. That's good.
Yeah, what I didn't know is that she had pooped in her diaper and then taken it off, but left it right by the door. So when I opened the door, I smeared it across the carpet. That was not good.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah.
It's funny now, but at the time.
It is, but not at the time.
So yeah, it is relatable, but this young mother, Sandy McDougal, she totally crosses the line. And it said that like I think the way it phrased it is she had punched him twice before she could stop herself or something like that.
Well, and she threw a bottle at him.
Oh, that's right. She throws a bottle at him, hits him in the head. He starts screaming more, and then she just punches him twice.
Yeah. And
then she's like, "We'll tell your dad that you fell down," or something like that. Like, so she immediately, like, she says sorry. Like, it says that, like, she's filled with rage and pity and guilt. But then, like, she immediately, like, plans on how she's going to cover it up. So it's pretty, I mean.
Even though, like, if a vampire gets her in the story, I'm going to be totally fine with that.
Well, spoiler alert. This is the kind of thing that you might not catch, but I've been keeping a list of all the characters mentioned just because I want to, keep track of everything.
Right.
That family is mentioned in the prologue in that newspaper article. And it says that after their infant son dies, they both move out of town. So, like, she leaves town with her husband after her infant son dies. We don't know how the baby dies, but that's already been kind of revealed to us in the prologue, that the baby's going to die. Sorry.
I need to go reread the prologue, because it seems like there's a lot of hints that I skipped over that I don't know. Or maybe that I just didn't catch now that I've read more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there's just a bunch of stuff in the prologue that you don't, it's like your brain just doesn't catch it. But if you go back, I think it mentions quite a few characters that we've met now.
Okay.
And how they have moved out of town since whatever happens in this book has happened. So anyway, then we move on to this guy, Mike Ryerson. He's a young guy. They call him a kid. I think he said he's like 22.
Yeah.
What time is his part?
6:45.
I didn't mark the times. I just marked the names and what happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's the cemetery groundskeeper, which is a cool job.
Yeah. Well, he says he likes it because he gets to work outside and he's under the sky and stuff, but it turns off a lot of women when he tries to hook up with them.
When they find out where he works, everybody's creeped out by it. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting that it mentioned there were 3 cemeteries, and but Salem's Lot is such a small town. I thought it was kind of odd that there were 3 cemeteries.
That is weird. Dude, you catch all these like small things that I just brush over. I'm like, oh yeah, 3 cemeteries. A lot of people die. Whatever. that is strange.
I keep, like I said last week, I keep relating this to like our hometown, my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Middleton is really small, but it's bigger than Salem's Lot, and there was just one cemetery in Middleton.
Right.
But maybe it wasn't super clear. Maybe he covers cemeteries for like the county and like they're in other towns. I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know if it was really clear about they're all in the exact same town. It did say that they were like not next to each other. You have to travel a little bit. So I don't know.
Isn't Salem's Lot a pretty old town though? Like it's super old.
Yes.
So it could just be that, like there wasn't enough room in one spot, so they had to go to a new spot.
That's a good point, actually, because Maine is like much older than Idaho. Middleton, Idaho, I think, was founded in mid to late 1800s. Yeah. But Maine, I mean, plausibly, there could have been people living there, you know, burying their dead in the cemetery since like the 16 or 1700s. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think I remember somewhere in the prologue that it was saying that it was founded like even before the country, like 1776. It was founded before that, like 17.
Oh, did it say that? I didn't catch that.
I thought it did.
Interesting.
So
remember Irwin Purinton's dog Doc? Remember that cute little puppy?
And he was alive, but not when Mike finds him.
Wait, was the dog in the part with Irwin earlier?
Yeah, it just said that he had a dog.
Oh, okay.
Named Doc.
Okay. So then, Mike Ryerson, the cemetery groundskeeper, he finds a dead dog. And it's not just dead. It's been, so in the entryway to this cemetery are like these big gates, and they have like sort of like spikes on the top.
The classic.
And the dead dog has been, gates. Say what?
Just the classic creepy cemetery gates, the ones that you see in every movie. And
and the dog has been impaled on the spikes on the top of this gate, and it's like dangling. And it said the ground underneath it was like all muddy with all the blood and stuff. So it was it was a little bit gruesome. But again, for anybody who's hesitant to read these books, it was not like hideously explained. It was just like dead dog, a lot of blood.
Yeah. It was brief, quick stuff. Yeah. So he finds him. He's like, oh shoot, I need to tell Win, but I'm probably not going to tell him right now because I need to finish my job and it'd probably wreck his day. So it's like, all right.
Yeah. And he considers taking it to Gillespie, the cop.
Oh, yeah.
But he's like, nah, you know, like, because it is a weird thing, but he's like, it's probably not like a big deal or whatever.
Kids
messing around. So he takes his time to report it.
Right. So that's where we end with Mike. Then we go to Charlie Rhodes at 8:00. He's driving a bus.
What a great name for a bus driver. Rhodes.
Oh, Rhodes.
But it's spelled like Rhode Island. Charlie Rhodes, the bus driver.
Yeah, he's a no-nonsense guy, Korean War vet. He's pretty strict. Like, I had some strict bus drivers, but this guy, so there's these two kids passing notes, and he looks back and he's like, you guys have something to say? And they're like, oh, no. He kicks them off the bus.
Yeah, like, he doesn't let the kids talk on the bus. And they're passing a note, so he just pulls over and opens the door, and they know, like, they already know, crap, like, we just got kicked off the bus. Like, what the heck kind of bus driver? Like, and
no nonsense.
He said that he's a Korean War veteran,
right?
And he's been reprimanded several times by like the principal or somebody. But but the director of like the transportation department was a buddy that he knew in Korea, so he like always kind of lets him get away with it. So I just thought that was interesting. This guy's like, he's doing what he thinks is right, but really he's abusing his power and just being a jerk to these kids and kicking him off the bus for every little thing. And he's like oddly suspicious, and he just assumes all the kids are like bad kids. Like when he sees the kids passing the note, is like in his mind, it's his thoughts, and he's like, oh, she's passing her note to her little friend. It's like, yeah, right. These kids are banging each other. By sixth grade, they're banging each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what a weird thing for the bus driver to even be like thinking about. So I just thought it was funny. He thinks they're all bad kids, and he takes it out on them as much as he can.
Right. Yeah. So it was pretty brief with Charlie, which is why this chapter is so weird, because it's like these, unless it talks about him later, this doesn't really have any point.
Yeah. During this chapter, we never see him again.
Yeah. So at 9 o'clock, we get introduced to Weasel Craig. He wakes up in the boarding house that Eva Miller owns, and we learned that at one point they were romantically involved after Eva's husband died.
Was it after? It was after, right? Or was it while she was still married to him?
No, it was after.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and he just kind of does odd jobs for her, and she kind of just lets him live there rent-free sort of thing. They just kind of have a unsaid arrangement.
He's an interesting character. He's a drunk. It talks about how he was mentioned earlier, and they talk about how he was out drinking or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wakes up, has a hangover. He's getting a little bit older. I think it said he was 60-something. He's got like white hair. He's just an interesting character because the whole time he's like getting breakfast, he has a beer for breakfast.
Oh yeah, a warm beer and some oatmeal.
Yeah, and then he goes downstairs and eats. I thought it was really funny. He hates the oatmeal, but he eats it in front of the other people in that place so that they think like that he's not just having it. Like he drinks the beer in his room, and that's like what he considers his breakfast. Then he goes downstairs to eat oatmeal in front of the other people and in front of this Eva Miller lady. Eva, I don't know. And then the whole time he's like having breakfast and doing these little chores for her, he keeps thinking about how he misses doing it with her and like how she was always so like eager and like he liked it and she was a good partner apparently. And but then also he keeps mentioning or keeps thinking about our main character Ben Mears and how he's just sort of like he thinks he's a weird guy that he writes so much. He hears him he hears him tapping on his typewriter all day.
Because he's in the room above him, right?
Yeah. And he's like, it says something about this guy Weasel. His nickname is Weasel. That gives you a clue. His real name's Ed, but he's not an intellectual. It talks about how he doesn't know how a man could have that many words inside of him. Like, how can you have that many words to say? Like, he doesn't understand. So it's just kind of funny. His attitude towards man, I thought it was kind of funny. But he's like a simple guy. He just likes to party and drink, and he just does like odd jobs around the house.
Yeah. For Eva, yeah. Let's see. We move 10 o'clock.
Oh, this next part was really good.
Yeah, I like this part. I was like, yeah, you go, boy. Richie Bowden and Mark Petrie. I think that's how you say it. So Richie Bowden's the school bully. He's this big kid. He's like bigger than most of his kid in his grade and bigger than some kids like in the grades above him. So everybody in the school just kind of, they stay back and they realize, well, he's in charge.
I think he's in 6th grade, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 5th grade. And he's 100.
I think 6th grade.
He's 140 pounds, which maybe by today's standards is not a big deal. But I think in the 70s, that was a pretty big kid.
That's a big boy.
I remember when I broke 100 pounds. I think I was in 6th grade. So he was like 40 pounds bigger than me. And I wasn't like a small kid. I wasn't a real big kid either. But so he's a big kid. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say.
He's a biggin. Yeah. So he just wants this new kid, Mark, moves in and he wants to show his dominance to Mark, show that he's an alpha dog.
got glasses and he like answers questions correctly. The audacity.
Yeah.
You
And he
believe
can
that guy?
see correctly because he has glasses. Yeah, who would do that?
He's got to go down.
That's right. So Richie goes over to him and he's like, "Hey, yo, Four Eyes, what it is?" And then, and Mark.
Did you just say what it is?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So he goes up to him. He wants to beat him up, but Mark is this smaller kid, but doesn't want to take any crap from Richie. So he like moves out of the way of his punches. He trips him, and he starts getting on his back, puts his arm around his neck, and pulls Richie's arm behind his back and like pushing up and saying, "Hey, say uncle, say uncle."
Yeah.
And he just knows, Mark knows that he has to do this or else Richie's just going to keep bullying him throughout the whole year.
Have you ever read by chance Ender's Game?
I haven't.
If for anybody who's read Ender's Game, it's like almost the exact same situation. Well, not the exact same situation, but it's a very similar situation. And Ender in the story, he grows to be this great military leader, strategist kind of guy and stuff. But right at the beginning of the story, he's getting bullied and he's small and he's thinking like, I need to end this so that it will never happen again. And he ends up, it's not a big spoiler because you learn in the beginning. So this bully comes at him and he is able to like use the bully's weight against him and get him on the ground. And then he just starts kicking the bully and he doesn't stop until the teachers pull him and he kills the bully. So the beginning of Ender's Game is like 6-year-old Ender committing murder on the playground. It's kind of crazy, but his reasoning, this is the sort of thing that like, in theory, I agree with it, but it's like a horrific thing. And I would never want, someone to do that. But yeah, like you got to really put this bully in their place or else they're going to come back and get you. Like make sure they know the way he says it in Ender's Game. I really like the way he says it. Like never throw the first punch, but when you throw your second punch, make sure there's not going to be a third punch, basically.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this Mark Petrie kid does. He uses
Richie's I liked
against
how
him.
he did it because he didn't like leave any long-term damage or anything. Maybe he hurt Richie's pride, but he just showed him like, hey, you can't mess with us. He got him on the ground, pinned him, and he made him showed him a little bit of his medicine.
Yeah, he twisted his arm and and it was great to see. He's a much smaller kid, but he uses his weight against him. Richie comes charging at him. He steps to the side and trips him,
Right.
So it was a fun, I don't know. It's a gratifying scene to read. No. Like, oh man, this bully got what we had coming to him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was good. So we get to 11:15. We meet this guy named Dead Rogers. He's the dump custodian. And he just basically, he lives in the dump. He takes care of the dump. He loves living there. It's kind of a hick guy. He likes setting the dump on fire sometimes and watching the rats come out and then shooting the rats. Like that's something that he really actually loves as a pastime. So
I love the way you say it. He likes to set the dump on fire.
Yeah.
he strategically burns certain areas of the dump, certain days of the week.
Sets it on fire.
And he gets his little gun and sits waiting for the rats to come out and shoots him. And he's like kind of bitter against society because he's got a hunchback. He's like he's a little bit deformed and nobody really likes him and he's kind of weird. Mm-hmm. So like he sort of he's in his mind, he's thinking about all the people he dislikes as he's shooting these rats. He's a little bit, it's a good thing he has that outlet because he's a little bit sadistic.
That's true. Yeah.
Like good thing he has rats to shoot or else he might do something else.
People.
I don't know.
That's right.
But it talks about how incredibly strong he is. Honestly, when I was reading it, I was like, this is Quasimodo from the Hunchback.
That's what I was thinking, dude.
Like, exactly like it.
He's really strong.
Got like a messed up face, I think. I can't remember. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's Quasimodo basically, and he works at the dump.
Quasimodo moved to the dump in Salem. So yeah, that's pretty much it, except for one small thing that we learned, that he hears Mike Ryerson mowing at the cemetery.
Yeah, the dump is nearby one of the cemeteries.
Yeah.
Ooh, and the next part is really nice because we start to get a little bit of more detail about the Marston house.
Right. And I feel like from here it starts going into more of like a, well, this part was kind of more story like instead of just introducing.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's true.
So at 12 o'clock we meet Lawrence Crockett, who owns a real estate agency and sells insurance, and he is the guy that sold the Marston house, and he sold it to this guy named R.T. Straker. Isn't
that a cool name?
It is.
It sounds intimidating, but it's not. Like, why would it be? Straker. It just sounds strong. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. And this part is my favorite line from the whole chapter, when it talks about the secretary. It says a foul mouth.
Her legs.
A foul-mouthed girl with the most delectable set of jahoobies you ever clapped an eye to. I was like, what?
Jahoobies?
Yes, some good old jahoobies on her.
I've never, yeah, I remember that part. I've never heard that word ever. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's funny. That's
we can only assume he's talking about her elbows. She's got some great elbows. So.
Yeah, what else? I don't know. Yeah. That's his secretary, right?
Yeah, that's his secretary.
This part I thought was interesting because it was a little. It's like a flashback basically. He's going on his lunch break, and he's thinking about.
That's right.
What happened about a year earlier when he sold the Marston house. So we had thought, or I thought, that the Marston house had been sold like right when Ben got to town, like it had just been sold. But apparently it was sold almost a year earlier to this Straker guy. But Straker hadn't really done anything with it until Ben got to town.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so it goes back, it's talking about this a year ago when he meets this Straker guy, or Crockett meets the Straker guy, and he's this, which I thought was interesting. It mentioned that he was a tall guy.
He's tall, yes.
He's tall. So we meet the tall man in the beginning. I don't know.
Could be.
And he's really mysterious too. So he comes into his office, straight to business. He's this bald, not a lot of just business minded. He doesn't want to talk a lot of small talk. He just wants to say, look, I want to buy this Marston house, and I want to buy this laundromat.
That was something that was really interesting. We knew he bought the Marston house, but it turns out he bought the house, and he also bought a business in town. It used to be a laundromat, and he wants to convert it to like an antiques shop. Him and his partner, we should mention, he's acting on behalf of himself and a partner who we haven't met yet. I think it was Barlow. Did you write that? Barlow.
Yeah, Barlow.
And so, yeah, they're very mysterious. It talks about how he's tall, bald as a cue ball, I think it said, and he's got like very angular, distinct, sort of odd features. He's got like dark eyes that are like set in the like deep in his skull. He's got like very straight, flat eyebrows and very angular jaw. Sounds like a vampire to me.
Sounds just like a vampire.
But yeah, and so how much did he pay for the Marston house, Jordan?
$1. $1.
So it's not super clear, but apparently he comes with this sort of business plan contract already written up, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, you're gonna sell me this for $1, and the real estate agent is like, get out of town, partner.
Yeah. Get out of here.
Like, what are you talking about? And then he shows him all these papers. And then at first I was like, oh, he's going to blackmail him or something. But then it was sort of implying that like the real estate agent was going to get super rich, that it was going to be worth millions of dollars, like what they were doing.
Right.
So then the real estate agent is like, well, I need to check these out with my lawyer first. And then Stryker is like, oh, yeah, your lawyer, Francis something in Boston. And the guy's like, how the heck do you even know about that? Like, my wife doesn't even know that I have this lawyer in Boston. So, like, Stryker knows stuff, and he's very mysterious. But, yeah, so he ends up
And
buying
vampires
it for $1.
know things, too.
Do they? Is that one of their qualities? So yeah, so this real estate agent, he ends up selling the house and this business for $1. And apparently he's gonna make some big money out of it somehow, but we don't know how.
Yeah, there's a lot of shady stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably not very legal.
Right.
Well, it's probably like a loophole kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Legal but not ethical.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh. Beat you to it. But, I mean, we were just thinking alike. Sorry. Anyways. So we move to Susan Norton. And this is at 1 o'clock. And
finally get to see Susan again.
Right. So Susan goes into Babs Beauty Boutique. The triple B's.
Have you ever met a woman named Babs? Me neither. Like, is that a real name?
Babs. I've heard it somewhere before, but
I've seen characters named Babs, but I've never heard of a real person named Babs. Maybe it's short. Is it short for Barbara or something?
Maybe it could be.
I don't even know. I just think it's such a fun
I don't
name.
know any Barbaras either, so.
I've met a couple. Susan goes to get her hair done at Babs Beauty Boutique. And Babs is the older sister of, was it the Dairy Kids?
Yeah, Hal and Jack that we met at the very first.
Hal and Jack Griffin. Babs Griffin.
Yeah.
She's the older sister. I guess she's already graduated. She has her own business there in town.
Right.
And yeah.
That was super short too. That's all we know about that. That was it.
Just getting her hair done. Yeah.
That's right. Then at 3 o'clock we meet Bonnie Sawyer. She's the wife of this rich guy. She's having an affair with this kid named Corey Bryant, who's just a local kid that works on telephone booths or something.
He works for the phone company. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Bonnie Sawyer is supposed to be like super attractive. She was Miss Cumberland County a few years earlier. She's like super bodacious. And she's cheating on her husband. No good.
Don't do that.
He works. Did it say he was rich?
Her husband?
Yeah.
It said that he made really good money.
Okay. He's like a successful, I think he was a mechanic, but in another town.
Yeah.
In a town nearby, he works as a mechanic. So she's home cheating on him. And
so I guess not rich, but yeah.
It sort of implied that like they meet pretty regularly to do the devil's tango.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So we see that small clip it. Then we get to see Ben again.
Did you say clip
4
it?
o'clock. The little snippet, clip it.
Clip it?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a word, but I like it.
Okay. The snippet. We can clip that out of the video.
I'm leaving it in.
Okay. So we meet up with Ben again. He's finally getting back to him. He's finishing up his writing. He skipped his lunch so that he could go meet up with Susan because back in chapter 2, Susan invited him over to her parents' house to have dinner. So he's been writing a long time, and yeah, he's getting ready. Looking at the Marston house, just kind of pondering over it. Yeah.
He sees that there's a car in the driveway of the Marston house. So
was that him or is that Matthew?
Well, a few different people
he saw
see
it too?
Actually,
okay.
Ben sees it, and then I think like 2 or 3 more people before the end of the chapter see it.
Okay, that's right.
I thought it was interesting. Ben, it talks about how he had skipped his lunch so he could write like his daily quota, so he could like justify going on this date with Susan and stuff. And I just think it's interesting. So many people think writing a book, like writing, I don't know, it sort of has this, I can't explain myself tonight. I don't know.
Oh, you're good. Keep
I
going.
have to edit this out, all these long pauses. He is very consistent, and I love listening to interviews of authors and talking about the process and stuff. And I wrote a short story yesterday.
Did you?
I imagine that someday I'll be an author, although I don't know if I don't know. It's hard. But I just thought it was interesting to see. Sorry, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but just if you are an aspiring author, a lot of times it's given this sort of like, it has this presentation in stories and stuff that like, oh, like I wrote a book, you know, kind of thing. And like, but a lot of authors, they talk about like, if you really want to be a consistent author, like you have to treat it like a regular job. And we see Ben doing that here, which is like, I think really commendable and really cool to see that, where he's like, well, if I'm going to justify going out to dinner, I'm going to work through my lunch and like type these extra pages and stuff. Where I think a lot of times in the public consciousness, we just think, oh, if an author doesn't write something today, it's okay. They'll just write it the next day kind of thing. Like, oh, I have writer's block today. I'll just do it tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah, just kind of free willy-nilly.
Yeah, at least that's
like
my perspective. I don't know. But
yeah,
like,
no, I can appreciate that. Like, you're just saying that, like, sometimes people just think, oh, yeah, books come out easily. You can just kind of sit down and write it, or if you can't, then don't. But it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, like one of my very favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson, he's like, yeah, I write like 8 hours a day. Like it's a job. It's my job.
Yeah.
Terry Pratchett, who's brilliant. When he was first starting out, before he was writing full time, he set a daily quota for himself, 400 words, and he wouldn't let himself like go to bed before he wrote 400 words. And if he finished a book, but he had only written like 300 words for the day, he would start a new book that day and write the first 100 words of the new book.
Wow, that's intense, dude.
He wrote like 80 books in his life. It was crazy. And I think Stephen King, I think we see that. I haven't heard him say specifically that he's like very strict on a schedule like that, but I have heard him say that like he shoots for about 6 pages a day, which is exactly what Ben says in this chapter, which I think is funny. He's like,
oh, that is interesting.
He's like, I still need to write 6 pages. I saw an interview with Stephen King. He's like, yeah, I try to write 6 pages a day, and I typically hit it, you know, if I am consistent. Some days it's not perfect. Sometimes I get distracted, but typically, you know, I work this many hours and I do it and stuff. And I don't know. I think sometimes people think authors are just sort of daydreaming, heads in the clouds, and then, oh, I got a book. But like, it takes, if you really think about the process of writing a book. Sorry, I don't know why I'm going on this huge tangent.
No, I appreciate. No, I like this, dude, because like
this is something I am deeply interested in. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, reading this book, like, you can tell that there's been a lot of work put into it.
Yeah. And Stephen King is a rarity because he writes so fast. He comes out with new books so quickly. But most authors will spend a year, 2, 3, 4 years on a book. And if you can imagine like just sitting at your computer working on one thing for that long without, like, it's not done. Like you can't even present it to anybody. Like you can have your workshop buddies and like show them this chapter and, you know, what do you think about this chapter and kind of share it with, but like your job is not done. You're working on this one thing for years and you don't even know if it's going to like sell, you know, like,
yeah,
I've heard authors talk about like, there was this one author, Christopher Paolini, he wrote the Aragon books, and they asked him like, what's something you've learned from writing? And he's like, perseverance. He's like, that's like 90% of writing is just like, keep going. Because a lot of authors talk about, there's this point, right? Sort of like 2/3 of the way through the book where all of a sudden you just think you can't do it. And you're like, you're having trouble making it all work and fit, and you just want to stop. And it's only those who like push through it that actually are successful. And I don't know, I just love that sort of stuff. And I like that we see that with Ben here in this chapter. And that's my tangent.
Very commendable. Well, thank you. I like that.
He even excuses himself early. Later, he goes on we see him at dinner with Susan, and he leaves early. He's like, nope, I got some writing. I got some writing to do. Like,
Okay, so now that we're close enough to the end, that's why I think that your theory could be correct. Because he's not actually going back to write. He's going to the cemetery.
wait,
He has to leave early.
what was my theory? You think Ben is the vampire?
Yeah. Isn't that your theory?
No. Well,
Wait,
I think we had mentioned that last week, but I don't think he's the vampire.
No, didn't you say that Ben drives the same car as?
Yes.
What was
but
in the
what I was
prologue?
saying in the prologue, the tall man drives the same car as Ben. So what I was saying is like, we don't know if the person in the prologue is Ben or if it's a vampire. I don't really think. I haven't really
I
thought
see.
that they're the same person.
You don't think Ben's the vampire? I thought that's what you were saying.
No.
Oh, you weren't saying that at all?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think either the tall man in the prologue is Ben,
Okay.
or whoever the tall man is maybe stole Ben's car or something.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, maybe the town, because we know something catastrophic is coming, right? So
Right.
maybe Ben dies and this tall man is trying to escape the town. So he just grabs the first car he sees and drives away or something and steals Ben's
Okay.
car. I don't know. It's all
Or
conjecture.
Ben's the vampire.
Or maybe Ben's the vampire.
All right. Anyway.
Maybe he's been a vampire since he was, how old was he when he went in the Marston house?
8?
Maybe when the vampire opened its eyes, transferred its powers to, I don't know, never mind.
That doesn't really go along with vampirical theory. So
No, vampirical theory. So anyway, Ben gets ready to go to dinner. He sees a car in the Marston house driveway because he's like in the 3rd floor. The Marston house is sort of up on a hill.
Right.
You can see it. And he gets creeped out.
Yeah.
So
then we move to 5 o'clock. Matthew Burke, school teacher. He's been school teacher for a long time. He's close to mandatory retirement.
63 years old, I think it said, right?
Yeah.
English teacher.
He's an English teacher. Said he's no Mr. Chips, which is a reference to Goodbye, Mr. Chips. If anyone's seen that movie. Super good movie.
Is it?
Yeah. I just thought that was cool how he did kind of a pop culture reference.
It's about a teacher?
It's about a teacher that, like, he goes to the school, the kids are super out of hand, they just don't listen to authority, and because he's so, like, diligent and good with language and good with the students and tries to work with them, that in the end they just end up, like, really loving this guy.
All those movies, Goodbye, Mr. Chips?
Yeah.
Mr. Chips. Sister Act. I think, what was the other one with Robin Williams? I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
Goodwill
Those
Hunting.
are myths. That's bullcrap. I'm just kidding. I'm sure some teachers have great success with troubled students. I can't relate.
Yeah. No,
I exaggerate.
Well, they are all just movies. They're fictional movies.
That's true. I can't relate. Well, no, but I exaggerate. That's what I exaggerate because I had mostly pretty good kids, and most of my kids, they might not have liked the material, but they were all pretty nice to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. They didn't really
misbehave
that bad.
That's good.
Anyway, I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, so it says this guy was no Mr. Chips, so it's not like a great teacher. The kids didn't really appreciate him, but it just said he was really diligent. Like they'd make fun of him, they'd put thumbtacks on his chair, he'd just keep on going.
Yeah.
Like throw paper planes, he'd keep on saying what he was saying.
I thought it was funny how, it said that like it wasn't that like he persevered through it and it was like, oh, I'm overcoming these children. Like he just kind of ignored them. Like it said like he would absent-mindedly, oh, there's thumbtacks on my chair, absent-mindedly toss them in the trash while still talking, like, or like, you know, kids are yelling and throwing things, and he's just sort of lecturing, like blah 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 blah, and like, and eventually he said that like he won some of the kids' respect, but like mostly kids just kind of coasted through his class. I thought it was funny the way it was described. It's funny to me because as a teacher, like administration, at least where I work, would never like be okay with that. You know what I mean? Like
with you at like coasting through, or with
Yeah.
the kids doing that. Sorry.
with a teacher like allowing that to happen in their class. Like they're like, you got to get a handle on this, you know, basically. And like, there's a lot of pressure. I feel as a teacher, as a new teacher, this last year was my first year, and it's like, there's a lot of pressure to like be as perfect as possible, as fast as possible. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know how you do it, dude. I could never do that. So kudos to you.
Have you seen Matilda? Well, you've seen, yeah, we talked about Matilda when we were doing Carrie. I'm like Miss Trunchbull. I've got like the Iron Maiden in the corner.
Nice.
I just lock kids in there.
Good.
Yeah. And I do this.
Teach them somehow.
I twirl my mustache while torturing children.
There you go. That's the only way to do it.
Sorry, I keep going off on tangent. So, so he's an English teacher. He's an old guy. He's leaving the school. He's thinking about the school play coming up because he also works at the theater. He's the theater teacher.
Right.
And then he sees a car in the driveway of the Marston house.
Right.
And he's like, what?
What is that? But then he just drives away and doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah, he just thinks it's weird. Was it
Just
him? Was it him or somebody else? Let me see my notes. I can't remember if it was him or somebody else later that said that like they'd been there for years and years and years and they'd never seen a car there.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd driven by since he was taught, like started teaching in 1952 or something.
Yeah,
never seen a car in the driveway. Yeah. Yep. So we get to 6:00 p.m. and we meet Bill Norton, who is Susan Norton's dad. Says that he's like this big, burly guy, a Tom Selleck, if you will. That's who he reminded me of.
That's a good. Yeah. I like that.
Just picture Tom Selleck. So if there's a movie made in soon, Tom Selleck.
Kind of a gruff, like man's man. He's manly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like all these boyfriends that Susan has had who are not serious minded.
Right. All the art fart types.
Oh yeah.
Which would just be like just all these guys that just don't really have goals in life pretty much. So it just talks about him, like kind of says he's this manly man. It says that Ben comes over. He's kind of filling Ben out just to kind of see if he's this type of person.
Because he knows he's an author, and he's kind of expecting him to be another one of the art farts.
Yeah.
And he's like, she's dated all these like wusses basically who like have their head in the clouds kind of thing. But then he's very impressed with Ben. Yeah. Because he drinks
Ben's
beer.
Really down to earth. He really likes Ben. Yeah. Yeah, he drinks beer.
Like, I love how, I don't know, I know I sound judgmental, but just like my life experience, you know, your life experience, we grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So like, I've never drunk alcohol. And like, it's just funny to me that like his measurement of like how worthy this guy is to date his daughter is that like, oh, he wants to drink beer. To me, it's like, why would you want that in the person dating your daughter? Like, he's like, you want a beer? And like all the art farts never want the beer. But then Ben is like, yeah, I'll take 2 or 3. And then the guy's like, oh, wow, that's great. Like,
I think it's just showing that like he's a really chill guy. Like,
I guess,
He can work hard, but then he can drink a beer too.
I just thought it was funny, and like, I don't know, it's so different than what I am used to or what I would value.
Right.
You know,
No.
I would want my daughter's boyfriend to be as sober as possible.
Yeah.
But that's just me. You know, no offense to anybody who likes to party and drink.
Well, I think another reason too was because he said all those art fart guys didn't want to drink beer because they were getting super high all the time.
He did say that they smoke marijuana, which I don't understand. Why, if you smoke marijuana, is there some sort of like, do they not mix? I don't know. I don't know. He's like that they
Well,
like
one's
to smoke
kind of like an
weed.
upper, and another one's like the beer's a downer. Sort of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he said that like they were these sort of beatnik style, that they would smoke weed and they would never want to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of fun. But he's very impressed with Ben because Ben shows up in jeans and a button-up shirt that the sleeves are rolled up, so he's like casual.
Right.
Drinks beer. I think he knows how to grill a little bit. Classic man way to measure a man. Can he grill?
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know how to grill.
I actually just started learning how to do it, and I love it, dude. Like Katie got me a grill for my birthday last year. Cool. And all this summer we've been doing like hamburgers and chicken and steaks. And
is there a real art to it?
I think so. Like at first I'd burn all of them and they'd be really dry, but I think I've figured kind of some tricks out.
Cool. You'll have to. We just got a house, and so we have a backyard now, and there's a nice spot for a grill. So maybe I'll get one someday, and I'll have to call you and ask you for some advice.
Yeah, invite us over, and we'll come grill with you, dude.
You'll travel the 900 miles.
Yeah, dude.
To come to a backyard barbecue.
Okay.
All right, sounds good to me. Hey, you're welcome here anytime, man.
All right, sweet.
So we've we still got 4 parts to cover. Sheesh, this was a long chapter. And it felt longer because of all the disconnectedness.
Right. Yeah, so we're done with Bill. Ben leaves early to go write some more chapters, which impresses Bill even more. He's serious-minded about his craft. Serious-minded, yeah. He's not goofing around. He's doing his work. So that ends with that. And then we go to 7 o'clock. We meet Floyd Tibbetts, which we'd heard about previously because Susan dated Floyd. But now we're actually seeing him. He's in the bar with Corey Bryant, who was banging the one lady from
the phone, the kid who works for the phone company.
That's right.
He's there in the corner. They're not really like together or anything. He just sees him in the corner. Yeah,
he just sees him there.
Listening to the jukebox.
We also learned that Floyd is Wynn's nephew.
Erwin Purinton, yes, the guy with the dog. The milkman. And
those guys are related.
The bartender, Dell, he's a little bit of a gossip, I think. They sort of like, Floyd's like, hey, you know, what's new? And Dell's like, I'll tell you what's new. They found a dead dog and all this stuff. And he tells him about the dog. And
yeah, and so Floyd's like, oh, those dang kids being kids and doing stupid stuff. But then Dell's like, well, actually, this is what I think. Slaps down newspaper about
devil worshippers.
Devil, yeah. In Florida, there's these kids that disrespected a church. They went in and spray painted.
Well, we don't know if it's kids.
Oh, people.
We're told it's probably kids. It was like a Catholic church. Dell, the bartender, pulls out a newspaper. He's like, look what happened in Florida. And it was a Catholic church that was desecrated.
Yeah.
And there was they had drawn graffiti all over the, I don't know, pulpit or cross or whatever, and all the pews.
Yeah.
And then what made it crazy was the blood.
Yes.
There was blood splattered everywhere. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then it was like, some of it was goat blood, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, but a lot of it was human. Like most of it was human. I was like, so then, yeah, that was crazy.
But
So
that's
then,
all the way down in Florida. So Dell was just like, oh, Satan.
Yeah, so Dell is like, oh, the Satan worshippers are moving into our town, and they killed the dog, and because the dog was not just dead, it was like impaled on the gate, right?
Right.
So then I'm trying to think, what is the mystery of this book? What's going to happen? And do you think the Florida thing was vampires, or do you think it's just unrelated devil worshiper thing? Like, do you think it's going to connect to Salem's Lot?
I don't know. I think it was just something that Dell's like whipping up, just trying to scare these guys.
But there was human blood everywhere. And you know what vampires eat?
That's true. But why was there goat's blood too? It could. I mean, you're right. It could. It could have.
Goats are
some
very
significance.
Yeah. Goats have a lot of symbolism in. But it's interesting in Christianity and Judaism. In the Old Testament, a lot of sacrifices were goats. But also in paganism, like the god Pan is like a goat-headed god, and like it's very common. It's reached it's in the public consciousness. It's part of public sort of pop culture that like sacrifices are often done with goats and stuff. So like it could be pagan, it could be something else, or maybe it was just a vampire that was like, hey, I'm hungry and I'm in the mood for goat.
The goat human sandwich.
Yeah, maybe the vampire was in the mood for human with a side of goat.
Because vampires have to get their sides too.
Don't discriminate. They can't. Don't discriminate. They don't have to only eat human.
I'm not. I'm being serious.
You're intolerant. Check your privilege. Your non-vampire privilege.
Oh man.
I am sick and tired of all you cis-toothed white males. I'm sorry.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry. All right. I won't discriminate anymore.
I kind of got.
You filed them down for the video?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you ever seen? It's so funny how vampires. There's so many varieties. Like, I've seen some movies where like the vampire, they were like retractable. So like.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just a normal person, and then like, oh, I'm actually a vampire. I just think that's really funny. Can you imagine being able to control your teeth? Like, I don't know.
Just flex your face.
Like, what would you flex?
Yeah.
Like, where's
We'd
the
be
muscle?
terrible vampires.
Right, yeah, right? Like right before the kill.
Then you lose all the scare. Are you trying to pull a rat face, or are you doing an impression of a bunny, or what's going on?
Victim just be like, are you constipated? I haven't.
My teeth aren't coming out.
I haven't been doing my morning routine exercises, and it's really hard. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Struggles of a vampire.
I love talking to you. We're crazy.
Let's see.
That was it for that part, right? Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
And Floyd is kind of dismissive of it, right? He's like, yeah, right, whatever.
Yeah, and then he's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna go see my uncle and see how he's doing because he really loved his dog.
Really loved that dog.
Yeah.
And then this next part was really good. It was nice and creepy. This is what we are hoping for when we read a Stephen King book.
Yeah, this was so good, dude. And my heart was pumping, everything, and my hands are sweating. I had to put on extra deodorant so I didn't stink. Anyways,
I think that's how you know.
What's that?
I was just gonna. That's how you know that something is well written. Stephen King's a good author because like you have a physical reaction. Like my heart also. I was like, oh man, like this is so creepy, and like you have an actual reaction. It's not just interesting.
Right.
Your body reacts to it. Like, that's how good it is.
Yeah, it was creepy. So we meet Danny and Ralphie. We already met Ralphie on the schoolyard for a second. He was standing next to what was that one kid?
Mark, the nerd, Mark Petrie.
Yeah, he was standing next to him while he beat up the bully. Just kind of admiring him.
These two kids have kind of become friends with Mark, who again is a new kid in town.
That's right.
And they're going to go visit Mark at his house because Mark has a huge collection of cool, well, I don't know if it's huge, but he has a collection of cool horror action figures.
Action figures, yeah.
Mummy, and a werewolf, and a vampire, perhaps?
Oh.
Frankenstein and all this sort of stuff. So they want to go play with his cool action figures.
Right. So they tell their mom that they're leaving. The mom says that, was it Danny that originally wanted to go by himself, and then Ralphie's just kind of tagging along?
Yeah, so Danny, he's 12, and Ralphie is 9. Danny's 12, Ralphie's 9. And Danny is very annoyed by his little brother. He calls him names and stuff because he's a typical little brother. He's annoying and sort of just like not a brat. I can never think of the right word in these videos when I'm talking to you. He's annoying. But Ralphie blackmails Danny into letting him go because Danny told him that he's going to see like that, play with the horror action figures. And Ralphie's like, I'll tell mom. And the mom is like this strict, I don't know, did it say if she was religious? I don't think it said anything about religion, but like she's strict. She's like, she doesn't want her kids messing around with like scary stuff. Yeah. So Ralphie's like, I'm going to tell mom unless you let me go with you. So Danny's like, oh, you suck, but let's go. Yeah, and the mom makes him take him, and he doesn't like it. And
Yeah. So, anyways, they're gonna go over to his house, but instead of taking the normal road, they're like, all right, let's take this little shortcut through the woods.
Yeah, because if you follow the streets, they'd have to like go up and around and over and all this stuff. But they take a shortcut through the woods.
Yeah. Rule number 1 of horror book: you never take a shortcut through the woods.
Yeah.
So they start going. They're going through the woods. Danny's a little bit annoyed, and Ralphie's kind of nervous because it's getting dark. And so Danny starts telling him about like this kid that had died in the swamps or the quicksand, like 6 years ago.
He's kind of getting a little. He's kind of getting a little revenge on his brother. He's trying to scare him, like serves him right for, tagging along and being annoying kind of thing.
Right. So he's basing it lightly on a story that he'd heard from a guy that was standing around the supermarket. There was a kid that had just gone missing in the swamps, but Danny tells his little brother that he died in the quicksand. And
in the woods where they are.
Exactly, right.
But the kid actually disappeared. It was like 3 miles north, I think it said. He wasn't in that area. It was like 6 years earlier. He disappeared. Nobody ever found him.
Yeah.
But Danny's like, yeah, that kid died right here, and all this. He's freaking out his little brother.
He's messing with Ralphie. He's telling him sometimes people see a ghost, stuff. And so this is when it starts building up the tension and everything. It's describing him going through the woods. They're hearing things crack a little bit, and then all of a sudden Ralphie screams and he says, I just saw the ghost. And Danny's like, oh, you saw the ghost? But not realizing that he just told him this made up story.
Yeah, Danny, he kind of catches himself. He's like, he's kind of scared, but at the same time he's like, wait, no, like that, I just made that up kind of thing. Like, but he catches himself being kind of scared.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, well, let's keep going. Like, he's just talking to himself. Danny's talking to himself, saying, all right, we just count the steps, keep going.
Ralphie said he saw eyes, like,
that's right,
watching them. So as the reader, I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh, maybe it's a vampire, but it could be an animal, so who knows?
Or I was thinking maybe, like, Ralphie's just getting worked up, too. Like, it could be that, like, you're telling about ghost stories. he's thinking about ghosts and stuff.
But then they hear like a branch snap, and then like another one, and there's like rustling, and like it's getting dark, and Danny's like, all right, let's like he's only 12, you know, so like he's starting to get creeped out. And then I think they stop, right? They stop completely to listen.
Yeah.
And they hear something, and Danny's like, run.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
I'm getting chills right now.
That part got me chill. Oh, dude.
I'm getting chills right now.
I know, dude. That part when he said run, like he says it in the goose pimples.
Danny is thinking to himself, he's like, on a rational level, I know there are no ghosts or monsters. He's like, but there are sexual predators, which I thought was like a really interesting angle and a smart
sexual preverts.
Yeah, I call them preverts. I was wondering if that was a typo, but then it said it more than once. And so I thought that was funny. Yeah.
Is that just their accent, or is that what they called him back then?
I got the feeling that it was like a dialect thing, like an accent, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. But yeah, I just thought it was like, what a smart kid. Like, he's not trying to be super brave and say, oh, there are no monsters. Like, he was like, oh, there are, like, you know, it could be someone here trying to cause us harm. And that's when he tells Ralphie to run.
Right.
So I thought I liked that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, run. But then Ralphie, like, they don't run. Ralphie's like, what? Whatever. Or do they run? I don't think they run, right?
No, they just, like,
they're too scared.
They're paralyzed.
Paralyzed with fear. And then I think it was deliberately vague. To be honest, I was a little disappointed with the ending of this part, because something attacks them, but it doesn't really say what it is at all. It just says like the darkness.
Enveloped them.
Yeah, it sort of made it sound like the darkness kind of like coalesced into an entity, and it got him.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I thought it was really good, actually, because you're like right on the climax. You're like, oh, what is it? What's gonna happen? And then it just kind of.
I just wanted to know what it was. I just want to be told that it's freaking Straker the vampire.
Oh, freaking Ben Mears just doing vampire things.
So you're thinking that maybe Ben left the dinner and went and attacked these kids in the woods?
I'm just saying it's possible.
I hadn't even thought about that, but I kind of hope that could be a cool twist. That could be a really cool twist.
Like, he's the main character and he's writing these weird books.
And he's also the villain.
Vampire. Yeah. I don't know. Just a thought.
So then we jump to Maybelle Wirtz, who's been mentioned once or twice before. She's like the town gossip. And she is basically just talking about how she sits by her window all the time with the phone and binoculars. She's watching stuff and calling people about it. Like, that's what she does.
That's living your best life right there, dude.
Right?
Yeah. Retirement backup plan for me.
Right. And then she looks out the window. She sees that the Marston house, the shutters open. She sees them open. And I thought it was interesting. This is like the third time that it's mentioned that the light coming out of the Marston house, whenever the shutters are open, the light, everybody notes that it's not electric light. It's not a steady, it's
I did
flickering.
think that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a flickering, inconsistent light. So I'm guessing a candle or a fireplace or something. But she's like, yeah, it was not a steady light, not electric. So then she picks up the phone to call someone about it. And then I thought this is another one of those things that, like, it's a sign of the 70s. Honestly, I'm not even very clear on this. She picks up the phone and she hears other people already talking on the phone. Are you frozen?
No.
Oh. You're just holding really. You're just Draxing. You're just Draxing right here. She hears two women talking about the dead dog that was found. Oh, and yeah. I know I know, like a long time ago, like I thought this was more like a World War II era thing, that when you would pick up the phone, it would connect you to like an operator, and you would tell that operator who you wanted to talk to, and they would operate the switchboard, and they would literally, take a wire and connect you to whoever you're calling.
Right.
I don't know if that's what's going on, and like
That's what I was
explain
assuming, but yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense if it's in the 70s, unless it's just like a small town and the technology hasn't bumped up yet.
Maybe, or I'll have to ask my parents. Be like, was this still? Could you do that? Could you pick up the phone and hear other people's conversations? Like,
Yeah, that's interesting.
She picks up the phone very quiet. She picks it up quietly, and she just starts listening in. Like, she's such a gossip. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I like that part.
Now the final part of the chapter.
Get to 11:59.
Yes.
Yeah. And I read that last part really quickly, so I didn't get all the notes. But was there something? Yeah, you started off.
So it's 1 minute before midnight. Most of the town is asleep. Only it mentions one guy who's awake because he just got off late shift. But like pretty much everybody's asleep. It's dark. A dark figure is standing just inside the gates of Harmony Hill Cemetery, which is the spot, the same gates where the dog was found. And then he says like a sort of prayer, which is creepy. And I wrote
devil worship prayer.
I copied it down here. He says, "Oh, my Father, favor me now. Lord of Flies," which is a book also, but Lord of Flies, favor me now. And the Lord of the Flies, like in the book, there's this pig's head that's all rotted. It's got flies buzzing all over it, and they call it the Lord of the Flies, and like it's very creepy, and it's sort of like a satanic symbol, sort of.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's a sign of like death and rotting meat and stuff. Now I bring you spoiled meat and reeking flesh. I have made sacrifice for your favor. With my left hand I bring it. Make a sign for me on this ground, consecrated in your name. I wait for a sign to begin your work. He then stoops to, so this is interesting because I'm reading this thinking, oh, the vampire is already in the town. The vampire is just getting ready to start killing these people. The vampire is this Straker guy, and he's set up shop in the Marston house. I'm thinking all this. But then this person in the cemetery says this prayer, and they're like, give me a sign so I can begin your work. So it's like, is this the vampire saying this? Or is this someone trying to invoke a vampire? I don't know. It was just interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it's an interesting thought, like someone trying to catch the vampire, or
not but inviting it to come to the town.
Okay. Yeah.
And start wreaking havoc. So like, is the vampire speaking to some higher power that he believes in, or is this like a person trying to summon some sort of evil power?
Vampire. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I just assumed that it was a vampire. I didn't even think about that other idea.
So if it were the vampire, who would he be talking to? Like the devil, maybe?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is, but it's not explicitly stated. So
right.
It's a nice creepy moment, and then it gets worse. So he says that he has offered a sacrifice, right? So you're like, oh, is this the dude that killed the dog? Probably. But then the guy bends down to the ground and he picks up a child. He picks up the body of a child and he says, I bring you this. And he like offers it up to the sky. And like, that's the end. Dun, dun, dun.
Did it say who the child was?
No, I don't think so. You know what? The last sentence. Can you read the last sentence? I thought it was such a weird thing. I didn't.
I bring you this. It became unspeakable.
It became unspeakable. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I was wondering that too. Like his offering, like became.
I don't know. Or like the person became a vampire. I don't know, but it says it. Anyway, or maybe just the situation became unspeakable because he murders the child.
Oh yeah.
So this brings a couple of questions up in my mind. When you read it, you're like, oh, it must be one of those kids that he grabbed in the woods. Somebody, he attacked these kids in the woods and then he takes them for a sacrifice. But there were 2 kids in the woods, and it only says that he has one there offering it as a sacrifice. So, like, what happened? I don't know. Maybe he killed the older brother and then abducted the younger brother to use as a sacrifice. Or maybe it's like not even those 2 kids and it's a total red herring. I don't know.
Well, the next chapter says Danny Glick and others.
Oh, Danny was one of the kids. Was the older brother. That's right.
Yeah, and Richie was the one, or Ralphie was the one that was scared. Yeah, dude, this crazy stuff.
Weirdly structured chapter, very much so, with a nice creepy ending. So I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, because
I think we're gonna start seeing some death and destruction in the town.
I don't know, dude. There's a lot of open-ended questions going on. Like, who's this guy in the cemetery? What's going on with the dog? Who's the Straker guy?
Yeah, I can't wait to learn more about Straker. Really.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll figure out some of that.
I have a problem, a confession. Not a confession. Okay. So I have the digital copy that I rented from a library, but it only lets you check it out for 2 weeks.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, not a problem. I'll just renew it. But there are other people like waiting in line for it, so I can't renew it. So I had the ebook copy checked out, and then it got returned today. Today was like the 2-week limit deadline. They sent me an email a day or 2 ago telling me like it was almost up. So then I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So there's also an audiobook version. So I put that on a hold. I requested that one. So hopefully I'll get it before it's time to do another video next week. But just so you know, I might not have, I need to maybe just get a physical copy of these books.
Well, I think this is due on the 18th too.
That one, it's a little bit of a larger book. So like it's hard to do it in just 2 weeks. We did it with Carrie. It worked great. But like the bigger ones, I'm probably going to need to find a physical copy. So just to warn our many, many, many fans of this series.
Millions.
Yeah. That we'll see what happens next week. I might not be able to, we might have to skip a week or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Or maybe we'll do like a talk about Stephen King, or we'll figure something out.
We'll do something.
Yeah.
Maybe you can call me and read to me over the phone as I drift to sleep. You can read me a bedtime story.
Okay. Yeah, so that you have nightmares?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can read the next chapter to me over the phone or something.
All right.
But, man, we suck. We keep trying to...
Our goal was to go a half hour, and we went over an hour. So.
I was thinking, I was like, oh, this chapter, like, it's just a bunch of disconnected things, so it's going to be easy to go through it. And, like, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Oh, we'll get this done really fast. But has not been the case. I think someone could actually read the book faster than just watching these videos.
Read that chapter. Screw watching those guys. We'll just read the chapter and get all the good stuff for ourselves.
Like, are we even adding enough to this narrative to justify making these? Because these are long videos, but I'm willing to keep making them. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
even if nobody wants to watch them, we have a couple people watching. But honestly, it's fun just to talk to you about them.
Yeah, even if it's just for us. Okay.
I would do these videos just talking to you about anything.
Yeah, dude. This is good stuff.
You
We've got
guys,
good banter going on.
Jordan's a cool dude, you guys.
Well, Ty's cooler, so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take.
I mean, we already knew that, but.
It doesn't take away from your coolness. Anything else we want to say?
No. Thanks for, yeah.
Thanks for
doing
if
this.
you're still with us here. Thanks for
After an hour and a half, then log off, please, because I'm sure you have better things to do with your time.
your children need you to feed them, and you need sleep.
You've been on here way too long. You're wasted. Yeah.
Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.